Good morning. This is Game and Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about board games
board games,
and friendship.
and friendships. You decide which one's more important. So this comes from a listener. This topic comes from a listener who had asked us that we should do a podcast on this subject, which is what is the subject really?
How much do you want to annoy your friends when you play board games?
Oh, that's what it was. So just because a move is legal, is it right?
Probably not.
So we're talking about board games, a little bit different than role-playing games. But, you can extrapolate this into role-playing games too. But anyway, so for board games, there are certain games where there's a lot of interaction between players. Now, obviously, a war game is going to have that kind of interaction where you're trying to kill or defeat the other player. But there's a more...
That's a strategy game, right?
Well, yeah. But they're all strategy games, but they're more, that's direct conflict. But there's other games that are less conflict and more about, trying to do your goals without necessarily backstabbing the other player.
Any game you can backstab the other player, but you may not want to, especially if it's a friendly evening game after a long day of a long week of work. And you want to get together with your friends. And if you want to get together with them more than once, you may not want to stab them in the back when you're playing board games with them.
And again, it all depends on your... Well, a lot depends on a number of factors, right? So the person who wrote about a couple of specific games. One was Ticket to Ride, right? Which is, by all means, a family-friendly game. It's sold over 12 million copies worldwide. It's available at Target, so it has to be one of those fun, friendly games that you play with the family.
I call Ticket to Ride the gateway game to European games.
Yes, to
European
games.
board games.
Yes, strategy games, modern strategy games. So this is a really easy game. There's not a lot you can, there's not a lot of moves you can do. But if anybody's ever played, and even if you're not, you're basically collecting, you're claiming routes on a board, and usually there's only one or two routes available to a certain city. So in this case, one of the players was headed toward Miami. When you claim a route, you put little trains on it, so you claim the route, and the trains are on a certain color. So somebody was making a beeline toward Miami. Obviously, had gone from Houston to New Orleans, and New Orleans to L.A. and claimed the routes, and it looked like it was going toward Miami, and somebody else played the last route available to Miami, blocking the other player so they couldn't get to that destination. So
did that person need to go to Miami?
Yes, that was part of it. So in Ticket to Ride...
No. Did the person who blocked the person need to go to Miami?
No.
See, that is the problem.
The rub.
So, and Ticket to Ride is one of those games. It's a really easy game.
Yes.
But you're basically going from if your ticket says Los Angeles to Miami, you're building your routes that way.
Right.
And so my strategy is always to build the route to the city that I need to go to, and then I fill in the middle later. So if I need to go to Los Angeles and Miami, I'll build one of my first routes. Well, the first thing I do is take anything that is going to, if I get blocked, I can't make my route. There's a route from Houston to New Orleans that you have to have if you're going to go that particular way. There's always other ways to go.
Right. You go around, as they say.
But if you're a new player and somebody, and you haven't played Ticket to Ride 200,000 times, you may not know that you always have to have the strategy of going different ways because you could get blocked at any time.
Yeah, so in just a real quick explanation, Ticket to Ride, you get destination tickets, and there's two cities, and you have to claim routes that lead to those cities. So when you get your tickets, they're called tickets, and they have destinations. You decide whether you want to take those destination tickets or not. And then once you decide to keep them, your goal is to get those routes, because if you routes that connect those two cities, because if you do, you get points based on how long those routes are. Now you also get points for claiming routes of different lanes on the map, but you get a lot of points from these destination tickets. So this person who's trying to get to Miami and needs to get to Miami, because unfortunately, the way the rules are, if you do not complete a destination of a ticket that you have, not only do you not get the bonus points, those points cost negative toward your overall bonus points at the end overall points at the end of the game. So it could be a huge swing if you have a 20-point ticket, and instead of getting 20 points, you subtract 20 points. That's a 40-point swing. So the person was saying, what do you think about this kind of a tactic where the person doesn't need to go to Miami, but does it to block you and does it to prevent you from getting points? Now, obviously, that is a valid strategy, right? Preventing other people from gaining a lot of points is a valid strategy, but is it a good strategy overall as far as maintaining your friends? So,
It depends on the kind of game you're playing. If you're in a tournament game,
right,
then do whatever you want. I
the
don't
gloves
care.
come off in tournament.
Yeah, of course. I've been in tournaments where we always play this Ticket to Ride tournament when we. No, I'm sorry, Seven Wonders tournament when we go to Kubla Khan. It's a great tournament, but we've been playing it for years and the guy that puts it on is really nice, and
Yeah,
it's really fun. But a lot of the people are the same people that come back every year because they really enjoy playing the game.
obviously.
And some of them have different strategies, and one of the strategies is to act like you have no idea what's going on, which is really annoying to my friend Kathy because she ended up sitting at a table with one lady twice in the same year.
I sat with her once one year.
And she seems like a really nice lady, but she acts as if she doesn't know what she's doing. And she's been in this tournament every year since it started. And she really does know what she's doing. She's just trying to distract you and then get you to try to help her.
Well, so what happens is in that instance, that's like really nasty playing, right? I mean, because that's beyond just blocking people or doing something that's legal in the game. Because that's
psychological.
It's psychological, but it's also not very nice, right? Because when I'm playing a game, I try to be a nice person, even at a tournament. Right? If somebody asks me a question, I go, I'll answer the question. But the one time she was sitting next to me, I thought she had never played before. That's how many questions she was asking.
I sat next to her once, and I never answered any of her questions.
What happened was, you're trying to play this game, Ticket to Ride. I was
Seven Wonders.
I mean, Seven Wonders. You're right. Seven Wonders is one of the games I was gonna say that you could play without having to mess with other players. But in this case, it's a little different. She is using psychological warfare, right? And I guess all's fair in love in tournaments. But I really thought she needed help, so I was spending my time answering her questions. And
which means you got a low score,
which distracted me from what I was doing. So then the next, so then after the tournament was over, my friend Kathy goes, that lady just kept asking me questions. I go, what do you mean she kept asking? And goes, I remember one question particularly I had already answered her, and she scored one of the top of my table, because they break you into group of different tables, because it's a rather large tournament. It's like 40, 50, 60 people, so depending on the year. So I'm like, so then we gathered that she just does that to distract her neighbors from playing. And so the next year I sat next to her again, and because you rotate tables and all this other stuff. And she asked me questions. She goes, I don't know. I just blew her off, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know, and that's the way I dealt with her, and she ended up not asking me any questions after halfway through the game or a little bit. And so, but it was like, that's kind of, I don't know, that's really underhanded. I think that
but that's a tournament, so people do all kinds of things, right? Like,
I mean, I guess I could like barf on the table and make everybody sick and cause everybody to quit. I don't know. Is that fair? I don't know. That's terrible. I don't know. I don't agree with that. But we're not talking about that kind of gameplay. We're not talking about psychological warfare. Like people who tap on the table and weird stuff like that. I have no idea. But we were talking about Ticket to Ride. So Ticket to Ride is super easy, but you can really block people. And there's certain cities on a map that only have like one or two routes that go to that city. And if you claim those routes, you can literally block people from going there, obviously. But sometimes you can block people without knowing about it.
Sometimes you get tickets in like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a hub. And there's like 5 routes going out of Pittsburgh.
Least. Well, I think it might be 6.
Maybe. But I know that every once in a while when I play, no matter whether I'm playing on my tablet or playing with actual people, sometimes I take like 4 of those routes without realizing, because you need to go different ways, right? But Pittsburgh is one of those cities that's a hub, and you could accidentally block somebody without realizing it because you want to go up to Toronto and you want to go down to Washington and you want to go up to New York, right? And instead of doing like a big giant circle, you just
have a star pattern.
You have a star pattern there, and then
And then somebody throws down their tickets and goes, damn it, that's it, I can't make it to that city.
So there's that kind of thing, but you do it without meaning to, right?
Yeah, there's sometimes you block people just by sometimes I don't honestly I should say I don't usually pay attention to what other people are doing unless they're kind of claiming routes close to where I need to go. then I'm paying attention to them, and I'm like, I need to claim this route before this guy gets there or this person that gets there, because I don't want to get blocked out of my route or have to go all the way around. And you are limited to how many spaces or
Trains.
trains. You got limited. You have 45 trains in your little thing, and in the routes range from like 1 to like 7 trains long.
Well, six for
6
regular.
trains long. So so is that a valid play? I think Jolene's right. It depends on the table. If I'm with a bunch of little kids and I'm teaching the game, probably wouldn't be a good idea to pummel them into submission, right? You as a teacher, you want everybody to have a good time, and usually being pummeled into
doesn't make you want to play again.
Doesn't want to make you play again. That happened with me and a friend of ours who played what was that card game? I forget what the name of the card game was. Rook. So
they refused to play
actually,
that game.
I didn't play. I don't really like I saw them playing. I go, oh, this doesn't intrigue me very much. So, but he was teaching this game to my friend and my brother, and and he's teaching the game, and he just tore them apart, right? To the point where they will never play that game again. They're like, oh, it's not a fun game. And even to this day, and this happened 10 years ago at least. 10 years ago. And they will not play Rook. It's that traumatic of a situation. So imagine somebody who's new to board gaming. You don't want to crush them in with the iron fist of
crushing people that you want to play with more than once is probably not a good idea. But it happens, and there's all kinds of games.
So there's all kinds of games like that. So another one is Carcassone, right? Carcassone
never sees the light of day in my house because my friend Steve likes to take all the farms. He likes you to get a nice big farm, and then he likes to muscle in on it and steal it from you. And I refuse to play the game.
Or Castle.
Castles. Well, that was another one. It's never really happened to me. So I'm pretty smart with my castles. But if you end up making a big castle, someone can put pieces in so you can't complete your castle.
That was another example that the person who gave us this topic said. It was Carcassone, where he plays with his daughter, I think, and she is brutal, right? She's like, she'll win at anything. She's like 13 or 14, I think. You get points for completed castles and this and that, and it's basically like a puzzle game, right? You're putting down the weird shapes of
it's a tile laying
game, but it looks like a puzzle. And so when you're making a tile, when you're making a castle, all the walls have to fit together. So what happens if you put a piece that makes it almost impossible to get a piece that'll fit? Then that's pretty mean. But that's part of the game, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that what do you do? What do you do when you have a player you want to play that way, and you have other players that don't want to play that way? And I understand. Some people just want to have a nice friendly game without having a headache at trying to figure out how badly you're gonna get screwed. Nobody wants that. But I don't know. I think maybe a player consensus at the very beginning. Hey, we're just a lighthearted game. We're here to have a good time. No,
you can try that, but I don't know that it'll work.
Well, that was the problem we had at this house. We're all competitive. Some people are super competitive, right? So I'm okay with whatever, any way you want to play. If you want to play full cutthroat stuff, that's fine. As long as I know that's the way we're playing, that way,
She doesn't usually.
I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting subject, right? Because there's all kinds of things going on as far as interpersonal relationships, husband and wives playing against each other.
So a lot of people have table rules like husbands and wives are not allowed to sit next to each other. The husband cannot go before the wife. This has nothing to do with me and Saul, because Saul and I are pretty. Every once in a while he pisses me off, and does things that really annoy me. But we do have friends who cannot sit next to each other because they will literally have an argument, a screaming fit at each other.
But that's because I think it's because they're super competitive, and one of them is very good, right? There's no doubt about it, and the other one's a really good player too. But the other player, the husband, is super analytical, and he's a real smart guy, and so he can usually he outsmarts me all the time. So I can see that. But his wife doesn't like it, right? His wife doesn't like it. That really sticks that thorn underneath her claw. Was it crawl? Oh, wait. Anyway, so what do you do? I don't know. What do you do?
I beat him every time I can.
That's just true. But we do play friendly, right? We do. We don't. We do
usually, for the most part.
Yes.
Unless you reveal your Lord of Waterdeep, and and they don't care. And because they have a card that gave them a special thing, which is fine. And I understand, but sometimes when you're playing
Did
a
you
game,
come in second in that game?
yeah, you beat me, you bastard.
Barely.
I was playing at a serious disadvantage because I knew I shouldn't have kept that lord, but I did anyway because I go, oh no, I can probably get. Yeah, I got the builder lord, which is a really hard one with my friends because everybody wants to freaking be the king of the buildings. I knew I should have put it away, but I didn't.
Yeah, it's a terrible one
and
to have.
I had a really hard game because Steve got a card that gave him extra, whatever you call it, a plot thing. And so every time he built a building, he got to do something special. But I revealed my lord because I'm all, you guys are freaking taking all the buildings. I kept taking the first person and they kept taking it away from me. So I only got 3 buildings. So I only had 18 points for my end game, which is not good in that game. But I was like, okay, I'll just have another glass of wine. And
Well, for example, I had the guy that gave you 3 points for any
quest that wasn't a mandatory quest.
That wasn't a mandatory quest, and I got 10 done, 30 points, and I barely beat Jolene by like 8 points. So
I beat Steve anyway.
Thank you, Steve.
I beat Steve anyway, but that was only because I was like, he's not letting me do what I want, so I just changed my strategy. And that's what I do usually, is because I play with people who are very competitive, so you always have to have a secondary strategy. Plan B, Plan C.
I'm sorry, but you don't feel sorry for Jolene because she is cutthroat player. Not cutthroat, but she is a very good player. And even with that setback, which is a huge setback, I give you, that you're not going to get a lot of points because everybody else wants buildings, but you still came within like 8 points of me, and I was like, that was one of my best games I've ever played. And you're playing with a disadvantage, and you barely lost. So what does that tell you?
It was unfair.
Kick him when they're down. So I would suggest if you're trying to avoid those kind of conflicts, if you got a table full of super competitive couples, you're in trouble.
Pick a game that you really can't compete with each other.
Yeah, you don't want people sleeping on the couches or sleeping in the doghouse. That's terrible. So I was, don't play Ticket to Ride, right? Because there's blocking involved, or Carcassone.
Well, you can. I mean, you just have to, and really, most of the time it's fine. But every once in a while, someone will be like, I don't know if they're in a bad mood or they just want to piss you off,
there's that too,
or things like that. But it happens all the time at gaming conventions also, because I played in a game of what is it? Settlers of Catan. I played with there were 5 of us, and I ended up playing with a husband and wife team. And then I was playing with this guy who called himself War. I don't know what his real name was, but the husband and wife, were only trading with each other. They wouldn't trade with us. So we're like looking at each other across the table, going, "Okay, this is totally unfair because they're like cheating, right? They're only trading with each other." And part of that game is trading your resources, your sheep for your wood, and all that kind of stuff.
I ranked that with that one step below that other lady who was like psychologically cheating. In this case, the problem I have with that is I don't know if they were trading, if they were equitable trades, right? Were they feeding one person one way? Like, oh, I want you to win, honey, so I'm just going to give you the cards that you need.
I don't know. So Warren and I decided to trade with each other since nobody else would trade with us. And it was
what about the 5th player?
He was the guy running the game.
Oh.
We won't discuss him.
Oh.
And so it was an interesting game. I've never been in one like that. But then we don't pull out Settlers of Catan very often because
even here,
because
I like the game, but
we've played it a lot. But even the last time we played with our friends, they traded with each other, and they didn't want to trade. Sometimes it wasn't that they didn't want to trade with you; it was just that they were faster to trade with each other, which was really annoying because sometimes you really need something, and other people have it, and they won't give it to you because
I don't remember
because
that.
she said it first, or my friend Steve always gets out a dice and rolls it to see who he's going to trade with. And that is the most annoying thing in the world.
That is hilarious.
And you have to get 10 points in that game, which takes freaking forever.
Sometimes.
So.
Yeah, Steve doesn't want to get...
He doesn't want anyone to be mad at him
for doing something. So, like, let's say he randomly has to deal out punishment or damage to somebody in a game, or has to give somebody an item or take away an item, he'll literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, count people and roll a die, and whatever that way, it's fate decided, not me. So I think it's hilarious.
He does that so his wife doesn't yell at him.
I think that's the number one reason, which is a pretty good reason, right?
Yeah. So board games are very interesting. I think that the main thing you should take away from this episode of our podcast is that if you really want to play, and there's other kinds of board games like miniature games and stuff, those people that have rulers, calculators, pieces
Oh,
of paper, and they are really strategizing about what they're going to do, any kind of war game. And then there was this one game that I played at a convention with my friends because they really wanted to, and I couldn't.
could say
I
no.
said I would do it because I had nothing else to do. And once I got into the game, I realized this was not the kind of game for me. It was a game with rocket ships or rockets, and you were trying to get into space and do stuff.
You gotta go to the moon.
My problem was,
I think it's called Leaving Earth.
maybe that was what it was. Luckily for me, Saul's friend Paul was there next to me. My brother-in-law was there, and we were playing with this English guy, and my friend Philip was there. And Philip is just going, I'm just trying to figure it out. He's not, and Felipe is doing the math and stuff, but he wasn't doing it right. His rockets weren't the thing, but these rockets were heavy, and you had to figure out how much you could. I don't remember completely, but I just remember going after the first turn. I
Your brain
had
melted.
no clue as to what I was doing.
So it's supposed to be like, as accurate as you could, as you can be in a game about getting shifts off the earth, right?
And I felt
Rockets.
really bad because I was totally out of my league, and there was no way that I could actually compete in this game, or even I understood the concept, but the math was baffling me trying to figure out. And I work with numbers all the time, but I was how heavy the rocket ships are, how heavy the rockets are, and how many you need to get from one planet to another was like
right.
just to take off from the Earth.
So you get points for like reaching low orbit, getting to the moon, getting to Mars, even to the outside planets. So and everything, so every rocket has a certain amount of thrust and it has a certain amount of weight. And of course, the more, you just don't add up the thrust, you also have to account for the weight. And then usually there's a payload, right? Usually there's astronauts. And if you have astronauts, then you need a pod that is going to support life and all this other stuff, which adds weight to your rocket. And then you need fuel and all this other stuff. So
That was the thing. You had to figure out how much fuel you needed to get
Yes.
these rockets up, right?
it is a brain burn. It is, you literally just like, oh, my brain melted. We played that here at my house with Paul. And I think it was might have been Bay. I don't remember. But it was just like you're just crunching these numbers. And just if your numbers is wrong, woo,
You don't make it. Luckily for me, when I was in that game, Paul was next to me, and I kept asking him, what am I supposed to be doing? And basically he helped me. Otherwise I would have been totally lost. And because Philip didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, he was like, woohoo, I'll do anything.
I'll try it this way.
Yeah.
And his rockets kept exploding
Yes,
and
mine
things.
did too.
And Felipe was having the same problem, and I'm looking at him going, and they're not dumb guys, right? These guys are all really smart. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm not playing this game again because I have no clue as to what I'm
Actually, it's
doing.
quite fascinating. I find it really fascinating. Now, the number crunching aspect of it, it is brutal for me, and so that aspect, I'm not gonna be a very good astronaut putter outer in spacer.
Yeah, you don't want Saul on the team that's doing the numbers for getting the
But
rocket
it
up.
is fun, and what's fascinating about that game is that guy goes to KublaCon, is a convention we go to here in San Francisco Bay Area, and he's there with his stuff, right? But he prints those himself, right? He doesn't go, at least the last time. So like you put an order for this game, and he's super nice, and from what I heard, and he'll contact you. He goes, oh yeah, I'm just on back order. I'm trying to catch up on my orders and stuff like that. And so I heard this other guy on another podcast. He was like, man, this game is really cool. So he played it at a convention somebody who had it. So he couldn't even find it, right? He goes, I don't even know where it's at. So this guy has his own little website. That's the only place you can buy it, unless somebody decides to sell their copy, which, there's certain games that people just don't want to let go. Because if you're going to go buy this game, and you're going to buy it.
If I had the game, I'd let it go. But
if you buy this game, you buy it because you're really super interested in this kind of game, and you're not ever going to let it go because it's like really neat for you. So this guy had ordered it, and he said he ordered it like 6 months. He paid for it, or maybe he didn't pay for it, but he hadn't heard of it. All of a sudden, it shows up on his doorstep. He's like, "Oh my god!" Like 6 months later. So that's the kind of game it is. He builds up he makes a whole bunch to take to conventions, I suppose, and then he sells them online on his own personal website. And so it's like a one-man shop operation.
Yeah.
And now he has all kinds of expansions. So it's pretty cool. Leaving Earth, I think, is the name of the game.
And so sometimes for me, there was no strategy other than to ask for help.
Yes.
Because I knew I wasn't going to win.
And you weren't doing it on purpose to try.
I wasn't doing it on purpose because I was baffled by the rockets and then these guys knew what kind of rockets they were and
yes.
They're real rockets.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I had no clue because I've seen rockets. I've watched movies about going into space, but I have never taken the time to learn what the rockets are called and that kind of stuff. And then we went to the sci-fi convention, and what was it? The one in Steve Wozniak's convention.
Oh, the Comic-Con.
And we were in this NASA thing, and they were talking about the rockets. And when they said the name of the rocket, I told Saul, I know what rocket that is because Paul explained to me the different rockets, which I had no clue. And then I actually went into real life, a Comic-Con convention, I guess, and people were actually asking questions and talking about these rockets. And after that game, I actually knew what they meant. But I'm all, oh, that's the biggest rocket there is.
Yes, they're talking about the Falcon rockets and this and that, and how much thrust they have, and is it a viable rocket to get to Mars? And I'm like, oh, what I like about Silicon Valley Comic Con is that it's very science orientated, so that's pretty neat. Even though sometimes I don't understand what they're saying. So that's pretty cool game. Like I said.
So it's a different kind of game, right? It's not a have a glass of wine unless you're a mathematician and really like rockets.
Yeah.
Then and sit down with your friends and because playing that one, my friend Kathy would not do it, and her husband would love it, but
he would have nobody to play with
because I would be going.
Well, maybe Ian and Alan
and Augustine,
yeah.
But yeah, not me
they're
and
math
Kathy.
nerds. I think a lot of it has to do with what do you want out of your board gaming, right? If you want this super strategic, push the envelope of your knowledge of this game, that's a good way to play. But you have to have people that want to play in that style, in that way. If people like Jolene said, it's been a long week. I just want to have a beer, a glass of wine, and throw some dice and
move my mice.
Yeah, and then that is probably playing cutthroat like that is probably they may not care too, but some people even if they want to relax and stuff, they still have enough competitive edge or whatever you want to call it to want to win. So when everybody wants to win and
there's games like Splendor, which I find to be there's lots of strategy involved, but it's totally your destiny is up to you. If you want something, reserve it because there's 3 people sitting at the table with you or however many people you're playing with. And if you think that card is going to be there by the time it gets back to you, you're taking a chance, right? So there's games like that where, if you want it. And Saul and Kathy used to whine that I was stealing their stuff. And I'm like going, every time, it's a game you learn, right?
Right.
That it's totally up to you to pick what you want to do and do it whatever way you're going to do it. You have no idea who's going to win because it's totally different every time.
Games that I would choose, there's not a lot of direct conflict. I was going to say Splendor. I was going to also Seven Wonders. Because a lot of these games, you could, even though there's a little bit of interaction, there's not a whole lot of interaction usually between players. You can't really affect what the other person can do or block them. There's not a lot of blocking in that sense. Sure, Seven Wonders, if you know the game, you can bury cards that other people are collecting. But that's one thing, and only if you have the resources to bury a card and all that stuff, to get rid of a card out of the table. But, a lot of it has to do with your own way or mental...
Your strategy for playing the game.
Yeah, and your mental state, right? Because, for a long time, I was getting super, aggressive and mad about getting bad plays and stuff like that. And Jolene was getting upset at me and saying to the point where, you're making it not fun when you get all angry and upset about how you suck at playing. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's not fun. It doesn't make it fun for Jolene. It doesn't make it fun for other players to have a player that's going to be all mad every time he loses, which my losses percentage was pretty high, so I was always I was always angry. But then I'm like, why am I playing? I'm playing to have fun, and if my antics is not making people have a good time, then I should change my attitude. And then at the very end, ultimately is why do we play games? We play games to have fun, and if it seems like I'm not having fun, then I probably am not. So whining and complaining about you took my card or you this and that, it's not very productive toward that end. And so I think I've changed my attitude quite a bit in playing games, in playing board games, especially. We're here to have fun. We're here to relax and stuff. So if I get shafted in the game, I'm like, all right, I don't like it, but it's just part of the game. It's all unless the people are cheating, I don't have a problem. I could play either way. I could play fully cutthroat and laugh about it at the end, or play really light, still not win, but still have a good time.
And that's what it's all about, right?
And I think, yeah, as long as you have a table consensus about what everybody wants to do, you can play a home game with your buddies, and they're like, we're gonna play, what is that? Game of Thrones. We're gonna play Game of Thrones, and and like the other games of that ilk, like Diplomacy, where it all comes down to who stabs who in the back first and at the best time. So those kind of games where obviously somebody's going to stab you in the back. That's the whole point. You're not going to win until you've
eliminated all the other people.
Well, eliminate all the other people, but also you have to make alliances in those games, right? You have to make alliances, and you have to break those alliances to win, right? That's just the way it works. So it's who's going to be who to the punch in that sense, and that's part of the game. So if you go and play those kind of games and get mad that you get stabbed in the back because you're playing the Game of Thrones wrong, just like Ned Stark, he thought he was playing the Game of Thrones. He didn't realize that the Game of Thrones was was serious, and what happened to him? Chopped off his head. Sorry about spoilers, but that show's and book is 10 years old. Same thing as a player. You go in knowing what the table structure is like, or the composition, or the table mood, or whatever when you want to call it. And I think it's important for everybody to realize that we're supposed to have fun. That's why we play games.
Yeah, and it just depends on who you're playing with. So just have fun. Try not to piss off the people at your table, and maybe they'll play with you again.
There's some games we don't play simply because it causes too much problems at the Carcassone. That's funny. I love Carcassone, but we don't play it because
I like Carcassone too.
It just don't like playing with certain people. But we play the heck out of Ticket to Ride, even though it bugs us sometimes. Many other games that are good at like Azul is good, Splendor is good, Seven Wonders is good at preventing there's not a whole lot of player interaction.
But there is.
There is a little bit, but not a whole bunch. Not like when you're open conflict, like a war game. Settlers of Catan is there's a lot of cutting off of people with roads and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's built that way, right?
Yeah.
You have to cut people off if you want a long road.
Yes.
So
there you go. Have fun playing board games. Try to be nice to your family and friends.
Yes. Be nice.
And if you don't have to cut people off, don't. If you really need to cut people off, go ahead. But just know that they may be angry with you. And some may express it in ways that you may not like.
Hopefully you can keep it civil. Let's keep it civil.
For the person who gave us the question, I'm pretty sure that was why he gave us the question, because when the other person got cut off, she was not happy. And she let everybody know it.
I don't know the background behind that question, but somebody got cut off and somebody's castle didn't get built.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
You have a good day.